we should say the b is 0. We have an x squared, we have a bunch of constants, but nothing that says like 3x or 4x or 10x. So we can either factor by difference of two squares, that's a possibility, or square roots. We don't have perfect squares, so it's minus 10. 3x squared equals 72. Let's divide by 3. So x squared equals 24. So we get to say x squared equals something. X squared equals a constant. If you can do that, then you can use square roots to finish it out. So x equals plus or minus. 24 is 4 times 6. So 2 square root of 6. And 4 is the perfect square in 24. Answer number 1 is done. And of course, we'll never forget plus or minus. We'll never forget that. First one, you can factor out a 2. Then we have to find factors of 12, factors of negative 12, and add up to negative 1, which is negative 4 and positive 3. So x equals 4, or x equals negative 3. Now, before we've seen that when we factor out a 2x, there's a 2x sitting out front. That's where your x can be 0. But you can't make 2 0, so it doesn't affect your zeros. You can't say x equals 0 on this one. On the next one, if we don't have a c, we don't have that constant sitting on the end like we do here. This is what that one is missing right there. It doesn't have that constant on here. It doesn't have the c. When that happens, we just factor out what we can. That's 2x minus 5 equals 0. We can factor out an x. So this one is not the 2 sets of parentheses because we don't have that c to play along with it. So now here x equals 0. 0 makes x 0. And then if you don't know how to do this in your head, just set it equal to 0. Add 5, divide by 2. So 0 or 5x on that one. If you don't have the c, you factor out. If you don't have the b, you use square roots. Don't have the b, square roots. Don't have the c, factor out what you can. Now this is the one that gives us probably the most problems. It even challenges me a little bit. I have to think about this one. I have to think about one of the combinations of factors of 6 and factors of 3 that combine to negative 7. Minus 3 plus 2. Because I need negative 9 and positive 2. It's the two middle ones that tell me whether it's right or wrong. I know factors of 6. I know factors of 3, but did I get the middle right? And I did because we have minus 9x here and plus 2x. So 2 minus 9 is negative 7. I got the middle one right. So now 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. 3x equals negative 2. Negative 2/3. So you set the factor equal to 0. And then this one, you can still set equal to 0, but 3 makes x minus 3 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. Completing the square. First step, make sure a is 1. A is 1. Good. We're good to go there. Get the constant to the other side. It's already over there. X squared plus 12x plus something equals negative 4 plus something. It's already over there. Some of you are bringing the constant back to the other side. No, now we're completing the square. We want it over there. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 squared is 36. Got to add 36 to both sides because 6 and 6 make 12. But you got to multiply that to find out what we're going to add. 36. So this is x plus 6 squared equals 32. Well, now to get rid of the square, we can square root. And of course, we're never going to forget plus or minus. I'm sure there's no way that will happen on the test. Did you pick it up on my sarcasm? Okay. 4 squared of 2. I wonder who's going to forget. Who's the one that's going to square both sides and forget plus or minus? Don't let it be you. Negative 6 plus or minus 4 square root of 2. 16 is in 32. 16 times 2. Any questions on that one? Don't forget plus or minus. Now this one, we have to get that over to the other side, that constant. It's getting in the way of completing the square. So we minus the 10 over, and we have to add something to both sides. That's your b over 2 squared. Take the 4 divided by 2, that's 2. 2 squared is back to 4. So actually, we have to add 4 on this one. That's the only one where that happens. We actually add the number that we have. Those factors into be careful, x minus 2. It's negative 6. Oops, squared, right? Squared. Square root both sides. Square root both sides. We have x minus 2 equals plus or minus I squared of 6. That's the square of a negative value. Of course, no one would ever forget plus or minus with square rooting both sides of the equation. Good thing that never ever happens. Never. Ever. 2 plus or minus I squared of 6. There we go. And just if I could, I know there's no way I can emphasize it more, but don't forget it up here also. Square root both sides, plus or minus. I know that's not the big picture, it's the details that make you, it's the deep, if you're looking to get a 1 on your border line of 2, it's the details that sometimes gets you over that border. All right, anyway, 2 plus or minus I squared of 6. Got some instructions here. A, find the discriminant. B, describe the number and types of roots. C, finally use the quadratic formula to find the solutions. Put final answer in simplest radical form, not decimals. So letter A, find the discriminant. Well, the quadratic formula is opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's the b squared minus 4ac that tells you what kind of roots you're going to have. Because you can square root a positive number. That'll give you 2 different answers. Adding 5 and subtracting 5 gives you 2 different answers. You can square root 0. Square root of 0 is 0. But then you're adding 0 and subtracting 0. That's the same value. It's the same thing. And then if you have to square root a negative, that's 2 imaginary numbers. So let's take this. Here's your A is 1, your B is negative 4, and your C is 8. So we have b squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. b squared minus 4ac. That's your discriminant. 16 minus 32, that's negative 16. There's your discriminant value. Well, it turns out that we'll have to square root a negative value when we use the quadratic formula. So B, I have 2 complex. 2 complex answers. 2 imaginary variables, that's parentheses. Because I have to square root a negative. Well, now the good part about how we're asking you to do this is you already have part of it done. It's opposite of b, 4, plus or minus, square root of negative 16 over 2 times 1. So you already found the b squared minus 4ac as the first thing you needed to do. That part's done. X equals 4 plus or minus 4i over 2. Square root of 16 is 4, but it's negative, which means we're going to have the 4i. Now, all of those are divisible by 2, so it's 2 plus or minus 2i. The bottom would be 1, so we don't write over 1. Don't. We won't do that. All right, the next one, well, the numbers. So letter A, 18 squared minus 4 times 3 times 23. I'm even going to use a calculator for that. 18 squared, 4 times 3 times 23. 48. 48. Well, we can take the square root of 48. We can square root positive numbers, but if you add a positive number and you subtract the positive number, you get 2 different numbers. So you get 2 real answers. 2 real. C, we've already done part of this. We have negative 18 plus or minus the square root of 48 all over 6. 2 times 3 is 6. I think 16 is in 48. 48 is 16 times 3. So we have negative 18 plus or minus the square root of 16 is 4. So that part right there, the 16 is the one that you can square root. That's the one that becomes 4, and inside is the square root of 3 over 6. Well, these are kind of a pain because you got to think about reducing everything. We reduce the square root, now we got to reduce everything else. So negative 9 plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 3. All of those, again, are divisible by 2. So if they are, you got to simplify. It's like simplifying your fractions. It's essentially what it is. Questions on those? The discriminant is the b squared minus 4ac. Go ahead. Okay. Simplify the expression. I think we already did this one. This one is 16 times 3. So here's the square root of 16, 4. We're squaring negative. There's the negative part. That's the imaginary part. And 3 is left on the inside. Square root of 3. 4i squared of 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, positive 9. But I times I is I squared. I squared is negative 1. And final answer is negative 9. Two imaginary numbers equals, well, just pure imaginary is a real. FOIL. I don't have a plus or a minus in between. I got to be careful. Remember I messed that up last week. 8 plus 10i minus 12i then minus 15i squared. So first, outside, inside, and then last. First, outside, inside, last. FOIL. That's going to be plus 15 over here. Plus 15. That's 23 minus 2i. FOIL when we multiply complex numbers. Complex numbers have a real and an imaginary part. Imaginary numbers only have the imaginary part like that. This is two imaginary numbers multiplied together. Be careful on the test. I'd hate to see you miss one because you did the same mistake I did. You didn't notice there's a plus in between. Negative 6, negative 2 plus negative 4 is negative 6. 3 plus negative 5 is minus 2. So these are a lot easier to multiply. Be careful on the test. Notice the plus and the minus. Yeah. Okay, so what if I add negative 2 plus 3i minus negative 4 minus 5i? So negative 2 minus negative 4 is like negative 2 plus 4, that's 2. 3i minus negative 5i, that's like 3i plus 5i, so that's plus 8i. So minus minus is always the plus. The last one you got to multiply by the conjugate. 3 plus 4i. 3 plus 4i. This is the one about 5 you skipped on the last one. I mean, forgot. We forgot, sorry. So we multiply through it with the 2 on the top. So this becomes 6 plus 8i. The bottom, you got a FOIL, but it's the difference of 2 squares. So you have 9 minus 16i squared. Now the outside and the inside, they cancel each other out. That's why we picked the conjugate, so that they would cancel out. This is going to be 6 plus 8i over 3 plus 16. Because I squared is negative 1. So finally we have 6 plus 8i over 19. And 19 is prime. Oh, 9. Thank you. That's why some of you are looking at me like, what's going on? Over 25. Still can't divide by the same thing, right? Thank you. 9. Questions on anything? All right, we have a worksheet for today.